what a talent is. A talent was worth 6,000 denarii. That's 6,000 days' wages. Put in our terms, it would take a person who earns $20 an hour 23 years to earn a talent, or what we call $1 million. So 6,000 days worth of work, 23 years at $20 an hour to earn a talent. You need those kind of numbers in your head when you hear the story that Jesus told in Matthew 25. For as if a man going on a journey summoned his slaves and entrusted them with his property. To one he gave 5 talents, $5 million. Right? To another 2, to another 1, to each according to his ability. Then he went away. The one who received 5 talents went off at once and traded with them and made 5 more talents. In the same way, the one who had 2 talents made 2 more talents. But the one who had received the 1 talent went off and dug a hole in the ground and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those slaves came and settled the accounts with them. Then the one who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 more talents, saying, Master, you handed over to me 5 talents. See, I have made 5 more talents. His master said to him, Well done, good and trustworthy slave. You have been trustworthy in a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter the joy of your master. And the one with 2 talents also came forward, saying, Master, you handed over to me 2 talents. See, I have made 2 more talents. The master said to him, Well done, good and trustworthy slave. You have been trustworthy with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter the joy of your master. And the one who had received the 1 talent also came forward, saying, Master, I knew you were a harsh man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you did not scatter seed. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here you have what is yours. But the master replied, You wicked and lazy slave. You knew, did you, that I reap where I do not sow, and gather where I do not scatter? And you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and on my return I would have received what was mine own with interest. So take the talent from him, and give it to the one with 10 talents. For to all who have, more will be given, and they will have in an abundance. But for those who have nothing, even what they have will be taken away. As for this worthless slave, throw him into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
All right. So we've got a couple of different ideas of what the master's like. The 1 slave, the 1 talent slave, speaks of him harshly. Says he's a harsh man who reaps where he does not sow. But there's not much evidence besides what that 1 slave, that worthless, lazy slave has to say, that he's a harsh man. Let's look at the evidence in the story. Here's a master with an abundant amount of wealth. He's able, before he goes on this long journey, to give over to a slave $5 million. You take care of this. And to another slave, $2 million. I trust you with that. And to another slave, $1 million. This is yours to work with. In that trust, it says that he gave to them according to their ability. He knew the ability of each of his slaves. That's how this master is. He's trusting. He's generous. Sometimes we feel sorry for the 1 talented slave. We think, oh, how sad he only had a talent. And so I want you to have these figures in your head. That poor 1 talented slave was trusted with $1 million. It was not held back from. $1 million is yours to work with. Plenty to work with. So 1 is trusted with $1 million, 1, 2, 1, 5. The master goes for a long time. He's gone for a long time. When he returns, he's anxious to see what the slaves have been up to, what they have done with what he entrusted them with. He anticipates that they would have done something good. Would a harsh master think his slaves were going to do something good with what he gave them? He comes back anxious to see what they have done. He honors the two who did well. The same honor, mind you, despite the fact that one earned him $3 more million than the other. Both of the slaves who did some work were told, "Well done, good and faithful slave. You have been good with a few things, I'll give you." The same accolade to both slaves, despite the fact that one earned him a whole lot more than the other. Then the master hears from that third slave, the one who buried the talent. The one who starts the conversation with, "I knew you, master, were harsh. I knew you did despicable things like reap where you do not sow. I know you, so therefore I did nothing. I buried my talent because I know you." It's then the master gives his evaluation of that one last slave. When I was in college, the semester after my first year, I went up to Asbury Hills to work as a counselor. And I was hired late in the year, and so I was unable to go to the training for that work. I had to start the day the campers arrived. So, as the summer went on, I kind of felt my way out. I knew a lot of what to do, but I didn't have the official training. Which meant, especially when it came to the trails, I didn't have all of the trails perfectly down. Which meant, when I led a group of 5th graders on a hike, we were supposed to go to waterfalls. Instead, we ended up at Caesar's Head. Now, if you have been to Asbury Hills, you know that Asbury Hills to Caesar's Head is a long way. Now, I didn't feel totally responsible because I hadn't had proper training. But I was responsible. When I got those 5th graders all the way up that mountain to Caesar's Head and realized where we were, I knew I had no choice but to call the director. Now, I won't name him, but you may have known the director 20 years ago with his handlebar mustache and his training in the Marine Corps. The director was known to be strict, and I didn't sense he was the kind who was impressed by mistakes or particularly merciful when you made a mistake. So I dreaded that phone call. But there was not enough daylight, energy, or reward I could give to those 5th graders to make them go back down that hill. So I had to make the call. Just to give you a little more idea of what that director was like. One day, a few weeks before this hike, I heard a pistol echo through the valley. I looked in that direction and saw the second gunshot. And then the director came walking towards me, mumbling under his breath, shaking his head. "Can't believe it took me 2 shots to kill that copperhead. I'm losing it." That's who I had to call. So I called and explained the situation and shut my eyes and waited for the response. Which was, "Walk them over to the viewing area. Take a good look over there. I'll send the van up there. Don't worry about it. I know it won't happen again." Which it didn't. It didn't because I was more careful. And it didn't because I was able to see him a little differently. The rest of the summer I had a little less fear of the director, which freed me to do a little bit more with the talent I had for counseling. I started to know the master a little differently after that experience. That third slave thought he knew the master. But it's clear he didn't know the master at all. The master was trustworthy. The master was trusting. The master was generous. The master expected that they could do well with the enormous amount he entrusted to them. He gave them an incredible amount to work with and knew them well enough to know they could do something well with. Sometimes we hear this parable and I think we side with the third slave. We think in our terms of, well, he was careful, he was responsible, he didn't risk too much. I don't think Jesus sets this parable up for us to like that third slave. I don't think he wants us to feel sorry for the third slave. He calls him wicked and lazy. He says he's, I think, unimaginative, not entrepreneurial. He's one who would blame the master rather than take the fault himself. He's wasteful. He's almost like a thief. The other two slaves took something that they could invest and they made something of it. He, like a thief, took something and just kept it. He did nothing beneficial for another. I think the evidence we get in the story is that the master would rather us risk something for his sake, even if it'll fail, than do nothing for his sake. He'd rather us have some return or even no return, but have tried and just do nothing. That's what I get out of this parable. I think of the scene when Jesus told it. He's about to leave for a long time, just like the master. He's got these disciples around him, these servants around him. And they're going to be the ones that tell about him. They're going to be the ones that describe him, that depict him, that introduce him to other people. They're going to be the ones who have to tell what the master is like. I think he wants them to know what the master is like. I think he wants them to use the talent they have to tell, to show, to embody what the master is like. What I hear Jesus saying is, you know me. You know what I'm like. I'm generous, trusting, and provides you with an enormous amount of gift to be used for me. Use it. I know you. I know what you can do. I know what you can handle. I've given you the right amount to work for me. I'll be pleased with every one of you who tries to do something with the talent I've given you. And I'll expect results. I'll expect the result that you try. Third slave misses the point because he misses who the master is.